Welcome to the Ecommerce Alley, where we believe that in order to build a great brand, you need passionate leadership, smart operations, and of course, powerful marketing. My name is Josh Coffey. I am your host, along with my co-host, Dylan.
Hello.
Hi, Dylan.
Hello.
And for the last almost 12 years, we've been helping e-commerce brands grow through a lot of the frameworks that we teach, through coaching, and through a lot of even the brands that we actually have stakes in, and we're managing and running and practicing exactly what we preach right now. And so in this episode, we're going to do our annual State of Facebook Advertising. This is a 2025 edition. And I'm excited about this. We've been building it, like I've wanted to do this since the beginning of January, but I had a baby in January. So unfortunately we had to delay this until February. But I love talking about this because we have like a front row seat and we're in the trenches inside of Meta ads, Facebook ads, every single day. And we get so many questions all the time, and Meta changes. It's like this organism that just changes. And so we're gonna be covering a lot of stuff, from CPMs to creative types to campaign structures to scaling structures. Like, how fast can you actually scale up your budget? What are the ways to do that with stability? What we're observing from the front lines, even with some of the new things that are in play, flexible ads that were once DCAs that some people still have access to. So some of this is gonna get a little bit advanced from a lingo standpoint. So even if you don't understand some of the lingo that we're using, hang around because there's going to be a lot of gold in this. And we haven't even started. So I can already tell this is going to be pretty good.
That's key. I think you're probably looking at the timestamp of this episode and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so long. I promise it's worth it. I promise everything we talk about is going to pertain to you. It's very valuable, and it is worth, whether you put it on 2x speed, whether you listen to it over multiple days. It is worth listening to everything that we have to say here, because this is, first off, it's our typically most downloaded episode ever. And then also, it's just, this is where we're just going to spill everything that we feel right now about Meta ads.
Yeah.
We have numbers, we have stuff to back it up. And it's going to be really, really valuable. And I would highly recommend that you stick around and listen to it. Not for retention or YouTube, anything. It's like, it'll be very valuable to you, but also will help with retention, so I'd appreciate that.
For your business. Yeah, and if you could, before we even get started, if you're committed to listening to this, do us a favor real quick. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button so that way you can get this into the hands of other fellow e-commerce owners, because we want to help as many people as possible. And if you're on the podcast listening, then I guess
leave a review.
Leave a review.
Yeah, leave a
Give us
review.
a rating. Give us a rating. We would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to know, we feel qualified to teach this. And you might be watching this, and if this is your first time, you've never checked out the Ecommerce Alley, you're like, who the heck are these guys? Well, we've been running ads since 2014. We started at the tail end of 2013, so that's why I said we're almost 12 years.
I was
Dylan.
like 10 in 2014, so I wasn't
Dylan was
running
10
ads,
years old, yeah.
But
So we've been running ads for 11 years. The first 6 months, we weren't quite into ads quite yet, but we're now over 10 years of being in the Facebook ecosystem from like an advertising standpoint. And so like, this is like back in the Wild West when like literally you could do, it has changed so much over the last 11 years. But we've been doing it since basically it came out. And from an ad spend standpoint, I know there are people that spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year. We don't spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year, but in the last 180 days, I took a screenshot. It has a timestamp there, so you can see this in February of 2025, that we spent $13,446,546 in ad spend. So we have managed that, but to be transparent with you, a lot of people will share this number that are agencies that are spending other people's money. Of that, about $500,000 of that is ours.
Yep.
And so that's the last 6 months, but about $500,000 of it is our own actual dollars that we spend on our own stuff. And so we're speaking from, yes, we get to manage and spend a lot of money on Meta that we believe is a pretty good amount of money that qualifies us to talk about this, but also we spend our own dollars. I know so many people that are like, well, we manage $50 million a year. And I'm like, great, how much do you spend on your own advertising per year? Well, we $100 a day. It's like the shoemaker's daughter, right?
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't have shoes, but her dad sells all these shoes.
I have no idea what you're saying.
You don't even, that's an old ad. You've never heard that before?
No.
It's like the shoemaker's daughter. So like the shoemaker has, I'm going to give you this. Dylan has to understand this. Sorry guys, we're going to side trail here.
Let's do it.
Okay, so like, and someone else could correct me if I have this adage incorrect.
Okay.
But basically, the shoemaker makes all these shoes for people, but his own daughter has holes in the shoes, and the shoes aren't even good because he's so focused on serving everybody else that he's not serving his own family. So people that they teach advertising, but they don't do the thing themselves.
Yeah.
Like the amount of agencies that I know that don't run their own ads, I'm like, okay, come on. Like you can spend other people's money that have a great brand, but like, come on, you have to like preach what you talk about and what you do, or do what you preach. So we not only manage that, but we coach a little over. We need the final number on this. I keep saying over 300, but I've been saying that for a couple months now.
Yeah.
We coach actively over 300 e-commerce businesses right now. Direct-to-consumer, physical product, e-commerce businesses that have Shopify, WooCommerce, or BigCommerce stores, primarily Shopify.
Yep.
And so we have firsthand like knowledge of a lot of this. So that's about $2.25 million per month that's going through our account, and we of course spend our own money in this. And so I do feel qualified to share this, and at least I'll share from the trenches of the 13 million-ish what we're kind of seeing. And so we're going to be all over the map here. And I want to, before we get in, I want you to know that Dylan is one of our head coaches. Dylan's also our paid media buyer, and then I am also a coach in in our Max Profits mentorship. Actually, I got a coffee mug right here. This is our MPM. Give it a little promo to the MPM. So as we go through this, it's important to note that I am not sitting on every optimization session. That we have optimization sessions every day of the week.
Yeah.
We are in so many accounts every week.
Yep.
And I'm not in the exact same sessions as Dylan, and Dylan is not in the same exact sessions as I am in. And so what's going to be interesting as we kind of dive into this is that you're going to have different perspective than me.
Yeah.
Because you see different stuff than I see. You're in different accounts than I'm in. There's some overlap, right?
Yeah.
But it could be different today than it is in 2 weeks or 3 weeks when you're looking at their account.
Yep.
And so so this is going to be interesting.
And more importantly, the worst part is, we're in all these different ad accounts, and something that's working in one ad account won't work in another ad account. So you either have to take an average of everything and say, most ad accounts this is working, or you have to share this are all working. It's kind of interesting because not only is Meta a living, breathing organism, but so is every individual ad account.
Yeah.
Where every single ad account will have something different working for it, which we'll talk about today as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really good. We're going to obviously share our majority observations. There are outliers in everything. So some of the things that we'll talk about, like, should you run to your website? Should you run to website in shop, right? That's one of we're going to share some observations that we have on that. And it's not the same outcome for everybody. And so there are outliers, but we're going to share what the majority of what we see is, so that way you're getting this understanding from like, hey, this isn't just one account we're looking at or 2 or 3 accounts. This is a lot of accounts.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many ads managers we have access to. Well, over 300.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So let's dive in. Let's first talk about CPMs, or cost per milli, which is cost per 1,000 impressions. Now I go to this every time I do an episode on CPMs, or we talk about CPMs. CPMs are basically the cost of advertising. It's simply supply and demand. So the cost for 1,000 impressions, which is someone scrolling by the ad on their phone or their desktop. And this is essentially the cost of what supply and demand of what it is during that period of time. So generally in November and December, right, CPMs are the highest because there's greatest demand and there's a limited amount of supply. And then in January, usually comes off a cliff. Now, last year, our observation, and we have there's a great tool called RevealBot, and they monitor CPMs, which is kind of interesting. And so you can go in and you can see CPMs over a certain time duration up to like the last 5 years, and you can see them month over month, week over week, etc. And when we did the 2024 state of Facebook advertising, what was our observation?
Yeah, our observation was that CPMs had been trending down. I think we made the comment that everyone's complaining that advertising is getting expensive. CPMs are going up. People, like, that was a complaint we were hearing a lot back then. And then we got on the podcast and we're like, yeah, actually, that's not true. We have the data. We're looking at this.
It's a bunch of baloney of just regurgitated things.
Yeah.
Like,
And we're looking at the data, and CPMs had been steadily going down for the last 4 years at that time.
Yeah.
Granted, there are ups and downs, especially in Q4 where CPMs rise. But over that 4-year time period, CPMs had been trending down. Now you're noticing probably that I'm saying had been, was, 2024 were. Something that we're noticing now is that CPMs as a whole are actually rising. From the time period that we did this last time, January, February of 2024, to today that we're filming this, we've actually seen about a 31% increase in overall CPMs, which that does include the Q4 kind of rise there, but then also CPMs did not drop to the same level that they were in January of 2024. They're not the same in last January that they are this January.
Yep.
So that means that there was an overall increase. And if you actually pull up the chart, which we'll put on the screen, but if you were to go look at the chart yourself, which I would highly recommend that you do, you'll see it was trending down for those first 4 years. And then you can see January of 2024 is the lowest point on this chart, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. It's the lowest point on this chart, and it's been trending up ever since. So that's kind of interesting.
It was January 2024 was $8.38. That was the average CPM. January of 25 was $11.84. So actually January was it was in the mid 40% increase.
Yeah.
Now annually, it's up 30-something% or whatever.
Yeah.
But even like last February, $8.97. This February, as of right now when we're filming this, is $12.55.
And it's higher than January.
And it's much higher than January. So this is definitely if you're looking at like bear markets and bull markets,
Yeah.
this is called an uptrend
Yeah,
because
for sure.
it is every month has been climbing.
Yep.
So CPMs officially for the first year in 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
have been increasing.
Yep.
Up until then, everybody was regurgitating the same thing of like, oh, well, CPM, advertising's, I loved it when I see ads of people that are like people talking about email marketing and they're just bashing advertising, like, advertising is only getting more expensive. And I'm like, you're wrong.
Well,
The data proves you wrong.
Yeah.
But now
Now it is actually
advertising is getting more expensive.
and we have a lot to talk about that at the end of this podcast. So if you're kind of wondering, like, what does that mean for me? What does it mean that advertising is getting more expensive? I would highly stick around. I highly recommend that you stick around to the end of this episode because we're going to talk a lot about what that means, and then specifically talk about what we're calling the Great Divide of e-commerce, and it'll be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Might be doom and gloom a little bit, but it'll empower you to keep pushing.
Yeah. Let's talk about website versus shop. So when you're creating a campaign, like a sales campaign, you can choose to go to your website, drive all traffic to your website, or you could choose to go to the website or shop, which is where Facebook will send it to like Instagram or Facebook shop if it deems necessary, or if it believes that you're more likely
If it deems necessary.
most of the time. If it believes that it's more likely to get a conversion through your shop versus sending people to your website. And I would say...
Oftentimes it does deem that it's necessary.
And what's interesting is, so the whole reason that Meta started doing this was because if you can keep people on platform and they're able to shop and complete the purchase without leaving Instagram or Facebook, then
Yep.
what happens is you have better attribution metrics on it.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting to me is that you can't go to, I wish you could go to only shop or only, I wish you could go to only shop.
Yeah.
They only allow you to say go to website or shop.
Because I feel like
or only website.
you'd advertise differently if you were going to shop. 'Cause you
Absolutely.
have to explain so much more when you're going to shop because people aren't able to get educated on your product in the shop.
Yes.
So you have to do more education on
It's
the
very
ad.
transactional. You can't do
Yeah.
any storytelling. You can't have a longer product display page. But what's interesting to me is like, you can go to website only, or you can go to website or shop where they get to choose. And one thing that's kind of interesting in most of the accounts that we went and looked at was that Meta prioritizes the shop over the website.
Yeah.
But in doing that, they make it it's very difficult to know how much is being spent on the shop versus your website.
Yeah.
And so they rolled out this ability, you could calculate website purchase, website ROAS, website cost per purchase, but guess what you can't calculate?
Anything shop related.
Anything shop related.
Yeah.
And in fact, they rolled out a column of a metric you could use, and it's called shop assisted sales.
Yeah.
Shop assisted purchases or shop assisted conversion value.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't break out shop return on ad spend or
Yeah.
shop cost per acquisition or cost per purchase. And I think that there's a reason for
Yeah.
it.
It feels intentional because you have all of the other data that you need, but they're not showing you shop. Granted, you can
When
get,
you
like,
have better attribution on shop.
that too,
because
which
they don't
is
leave
the
platform,
funniest
which
part.
is kind of
Yeah.
ironic.
Yeah, I think honestly, I'm I'm not a huge fan of Shop. I mean, we've seen it not work majorly for most brands. I think the reason being is because they're so, like you said, transactional.
Yeah.
Like, people don't get to understand the brand. Most importantly, I think people don't get to learn about the product, because most of your product education is done on your website.
Yeah.
And you can't do that on Shop, or very, very minimal you can on Shop. And it's so hard to give a good buyer experience on something that you don't have control over.
Yeah. We also see, I'd say on when you go to the shop as well, typically you have higher refunds, higher exchanges, lower average order value.
That's a big thing too.
There are downsides to it. Now, the benefit is usually your cost per click, cost per unique link click to a shop is substantially less than an outbound click, because of course Meta wants to keep people on their platform. I just wish that they were more transparent about the metrics around it, because you have to do some like a mathematical jujitsu to get to where you want to go. And there is mathematical jujitsu that you can do. And I went ahead and I ran some numbers, so I'm just going to rattle off a couple of things, because one of our brands was running. We were running to website or shop, and the campaign did okay. It was like 2 point something ROAS, which is above like the break even's like a 1.3 or 1.4. So we're running ads profitably. But it was website or shop. And we wanted to figure out, okay, well, how much is the actual shop producing? Because clearly Meta is hiding all this information, even though they have the most information on people to check out on their platform, which is a little interesting to us.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to know how much is actually going there. There's some calculations you could do. You could take unique link clicks minus outbound clicks, get the average cost per click. You could then go and look at the Meta, how much sales came in the last period of time, same window of time inside your shop, and then you can get a blended return on ad spend or a blended cost per acquisition. And so without giving you all the nerdy numbers of it, here's what happened when we analyzed in a 7-day window of time, or a 30-day window of time. We spent $10,250, or out of $11,800 that we spent on Meta, $10,250 was pushing people to the shop. So let's look at that. It's almost, 90%?
Yeah.
85% was going to the shop. And then we reverse engineered the return on ad spend and the cost per acquisition for the shop. And the return on ad spend of only shop purchases was 1.15 return on ad spend. And the cost per acquisition was $41.84. Typically, we're hovering around $20 to $25 cost per acquisition, and yet we're sitting at almost $42 going to the shop. So the cost per acquisition was almost double.
Yeah.
Like, it was horrible. The return on ad spend was 1.15, but the account performance as a whole was hovering just over that 2 space. It was like 2.1, 2.2. So it tells us that if 90% of the revenue or the ad spend was going to the shop, and the shop is performing at a 1.15, well, what does that tell us about website performance?
Yep.
Way higher. So obviously what we did was we just said, screw this, we yanked it, and we launched website only, and now it's doing fine.
Yeah.
So it's my observation, and I don't know what you've seen as well, is that we've seen the good and bad of shops. It is mostly bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've seen good?
I have seen good.
You have.
Actually, 2 days ago, I asked in our community, I said, hey, what are the results of it? And then Amanda, one of the people in our Max Profits mentorship, she said, actually, I did the whole calculation breakdown that you guys told me how to do.
Yep.
And she said my shop return on ad spend, she owns a jewelry brand, I think it was like 3.5 or 3.4, while her website was 2 point something.
Interesting.
And I was like, whoa, you're one of the outliers. So we're sharing you the majority.
Yeah.
We did another one. One of our brands was like 70% of spend was going to the shop, and it was operating at a 0.85 return on ad spend.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know.
Honestly,
observation is don't do it.
Yeah, I want to put this out here though, because I do believe shop will become valuable at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I think Meta rolled it out and it just wasn't ready yet. Or maybe it was ready technically, but consumers are just, it's not meeting the needs of consumers. I could see it becoming almost a replacement for Amazon, because I feel like Amazon is that trusted source that people will go to buy. And if Meta can match that, become that trusted source where I don't have to go off platform, I don't have to go to the sketchy website, I think it can become valuable. It's just not there yet. And I think this is what happened with Advantage Plus. When Advantage Plus first came out, what was that, a year, 2 years ago? I don't even remember now.
It was like 3 years ago.
Was it really that long ago?
It came out a little while ago. It just sucked at the beginning.
And that's where I was going. So it was 2 years ago that it actually started working. That first year, it was bad.
It was atrocious.
I think that's what's happening with Shop.
Yeah.
It could take up to a year for it to actually Meta users have to start to trust it, and then also Meta has to make changes to it to maybe give e-commerce brands more control over it,
Yes.
so they can educate. But I will see it become valuable in the future, just not right
It'd
now.
be such a smart move on Meta's behalf.
For sure.
Like if Meta comes in and said like, hey, listen, we're going to allow you inside your commerce manager
Yep.
the ability to create a template
Yeah.
for your product display pages,
Yep.
or you're allowed to go into certain products and you're able to like customize it. Oh, dude, if they did that, I think it would do so much better.
Yeah.
And then if it was also structured to kind of look like an Amazon page,
Yep.
where people would scroll down and get all the information,
Yep.
and then like see reviews as well, like it would
Yeah.
make a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, I just think it's not quite there yet, and I think same with Advantage Plus at the time where we said don't use Advantage Plus. It's the same with Shop. I would not recommend it for the majority of people,
Yeah.
but stay tuned because I think that will change, hopefully soon.
Yeah, and if you're wondering like how the heck do I calculate my return on ad spend or my cost per acquisition for my shop, like, hey guys, I'm running to website or shop and I've always thought it did well, but I don't really know, and I want to find out what are my actual metrics, then we're gonna put a link in the description to a YouTube video where I'll walk you through exactly how to calculate your return on ad spend and CPA from the shop only.
Yep.
All right, number 3, advantage shopping campaigns versus manual sales campaigns. What do you think?
Yeah, this is one it's kind of up in the air for me. I think that we saw Advantage Plus do really, really well. However, there were those few accounts where for some reason, like we said, every ad account is a living, breathing organism.
Yeah.
So we see some accounts just hate Advantage Plus. We don't quite know why. I don't. Do you have a reason for why Advantage Plus just doesn't work for some?
No.
I don't know.
No.
It just doesn't. But for those where Advantage Plus wasn't working, we're like, hey, let's try a manual sales campaign. Going back to the old days, even with like audience targeting, we're using different ad sets to target different audiences, and that was doing so much better. Now I don't know, like you said, you don't know really why Advantage Plus isn't working for some, manual isn't working for some. I still think Advantage Plus mostly is the safest bet because giving Meta that control, letting them just do what they think is best, I still think is the best. However, I think once you get to a certain point, manual sales campaigns actually give you more control over scaling, and you have more visibility on what's happening, where things are going, retargeting, all of that kind of stuff, where the manual sales campaigns become a little bit more valuable.
Yeah. I would, what's interesting is like, campaign structure, what campaign do I do? A lot of people think that it's the ticket. It's really not. You need to get the fundamentals of ads and offer and stuff down first.
Yep.
But like even so, I think that they're more congruent with performance than they ever have been. Like it's usually always felt like, hey, Advantage Plus shopping campaigns crushes manual sales.
Yes.
And then last March, freaking Meta adds in engaged audiences and existing customer audiences, and then suddenly it just freaking wrecks it. And everybody, last March, it was like a huge thing for a whole month and a half. Meta was in the dumps.
And then manual sales campaigns back then weren't as good as they are now because everyone was shifting to Advantage Plus. And then back then it was like, I felt like back then there was like a month of like Meta advertising was just like
dead.
Not a thing. Like it was that
the
1
worst.
month where Advantage
was
Plus wasn't
painful.
working, manual sales wasn't working. I don't think Advantage Plus audiences were out at the time yet. So there was almost just nothing you could do at the time.
We became therapists in coaching
That's what it
sessions,
was,
essentially.
yeah.
We were just therapists for
That's what it
everybody.
felt like.
But like, there would always be like this yin and yang kind of like of a deal where like it'd be like manual sales campaigns are really crushing right now, and then Advantage Plus shopping campaigns. And I would say like right now we see that both actually perform pretty similar to each other. And we actually, I shared on my Instagram, I just shared and in our community, I shared like a thing we did in the last 90 days with our own dollars. We spent about 120 grand, it's like 118,000 something, and we spent 40-ish on manual sales and about 80 on
46 and 85 if you want to be.
in 85 on Advantage Plus shopping campaigns. And they had the exact same ads in them. And the CPA was less than $1 difference. One was like 59 and the other was 60. Don't quote me on it.
58.62 for the Advantage Plus and 58.46.
Oh, you're talking like less than 25 cents difference between the two. And it's over enough spend that you would probably say, okay, we could see some trends here, right? And so I think that right now they are closer than ever in performance. But I think like you posed, it just depends on what your objective is. And I will say this, they do behave a little bit, some things behave differently.
Yes.
So I think that Advantage Plus shopping is like hot out of the gates. Like the performance is really fast on it.
I agree.
Way faster than before. And actually, we just started a new campaign for like $1,000 a day yesterday. We took our top 5 ads, we threw the super ads we have, we threw them in a campaign, and we'll talk about some budget stuff later because we're trying some interesting things right now. And we started $1,000 a day, and with 5 ads in it.
Yep.
And immediately the CPAs were like $80 or something. And normally the first few days is like several $100 CPAs, and then they just go down and down and down until we're in that like $60 to $75 target range that we're aiming for. But it was like day one was like, you can probably pull up the exact number, 80 something, I think.
Hold on, I just.
And then today is day 2, and it's already, I think, in the 80s again.
Yes.
And
so both days are right above, I guess.
Right above target.
Right above target, which in cost
CPA.
per purchase is bad, but just right above, and that's 2 days. So there's no
normally
optimization
it would take a lot longer than that to kind of optimize
to get even close to that point.
So Advanced Plus shopping campaigns have like this really direct response effect where they get traction right away. I would say that I observed that manual sales, and maybe you see differently. I think manual sales campaigns take longer to get in a groove, but when they get in a groove, they're just freaking workhorses, and they're less volatile than ASC. Like I think ASC, I see more volatility than manual sales campaigns, but manual sales campaigns, they get to this point where they kind of start to level out.
Yeah.
ASCs are faster to get there, but then there's a lot of volatility in it. So if out of 7 days, you could have 2 bad days and then 5 good days, and it all averages out, whereas manual sales campaigns, sorry, I'm shortening MSC. Manual sales campaigns are, they take a little bit longer. Some of them can take a couple weeks to really get in their groove, and then they just have less volatility as far as like purchase volume goes.
Yeah, that's
I don't know
fair.
if you see that or if you disagree with that.
No, I think spend really plays a big role in that, how much you're spending on an Advantage Plus campaign. I do think that Advantage Plus just gets better with more spend, which obviously is hard for some people when you're starting out. I still think Advantage Plus is the best to start with.
I would agree.
Even if you're not spending a lot. It does mean you'll see more volatility for sure, but I think
you would see that either way, though. If your spend isn't high enough in manual sales campaigns.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a breakdown of our CPAs in that Advantage Plus campaign, and I would agree. I think there was a lot of volatility day over day, where CPMs would go, CPA, would go anywhere from $22 to $96.
In the manual or the Advantage Plus?
In the Advantage Plus campaign. So it would kind of fluctuate a little bit there.
How does it stack against the manual?
Let's see.
Sorry, guys, we're like live time looking at Ads Manager right here.
Okay, so manual was I don't see any 20s, so there's no like crazy low. I'm seeing mainly it's like 40s, 50s.
So there's less fluctuation. It all averages, but there's less fluctuation.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I mean, that's how it feels.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff I look at, that's how it kind of feels.
Yep.
If you were starting out, what would you go ASC?
I'd go
Advantage
ASC.
Plus?
Yeah. Honestly, I think it comes down to MSC, manual sales campaign, works the best when you have proven stuff. When I say stuff, it means ads, messaging, offer, audiences, targeting, all of that. You have to know what works. If you don't know what works, then you may make one decision. For instance, targeting USA and Canada. Maybe Canada, if you're in the USA, Canada is the worst thing that you could do. But you just throw it in there because you don't know. And that can wreck your manual sales campaign. You have to prove all of those assets before throwing it into a manual sales campaign, I think.
Do you think, so if I was listening right now, I'm like, what one would you use ASC as more of a testing grounds for conversion, and then you have winners that you would move into a manual sales campaign for scalability, or would you use manual sales campaigns as a testing ground for more control with like ads and stuff like that you would then move into an ASC?
I think that comes down...
I don't know if you have an answer to that.
No, I think it comes down to the outcome of what you're trying to figure out, which is what we're going to talk about next. So that's a great segue into what campaign structures are used for what. Like you said, I actually don't think that campaign structures really matter. Like you said, like Advantage Plus and manual sales campaign will ultimately give you about the same results.
Do you think targeting matters though?
It depends. Are you saying targeting?
Well, because in a campaign structure, like if I had several ad sets, part of that structure might be like different audiences.
Yes,
do you think
I do think that matters.
You think okay, so you think targeting does matter?
Yes.
Okay.
But it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to prove, because I think targeting matters for some people. and targeting doesn't matter for others. Some people, Advantage Plus is the best targeting they can do. Some people, Advantage
Which is no
Plus,
targeting.
yeah,
It's all broad.
where some
For right
people,
now, yeah.
Advantage Plus doesn't work, and targeting is actually the better thing to do. And that's where I think the different campaign structures come in, because if you're trying to figure out what audience works, I think a manual sales campaign is your only option. Manual sales campaign. For like if you're trying to test what countries work, manual sales campaign I would use for that.
Really? Because you could also split an ASC by country. You could do an ASC to US, ASC to Canada.
I would say, I think a manual sales campaign because you can have multiple ad sets inside to each country. So I almost start to see campaigns as folders.
Yeah,
Like
agreed.
it's not like this campaign does better because it's this. It's this campaign, the reason for its existence was to test this.
Yep.
It was to test countries. It was to test an offer. It was to test. Now, the way you structure it is based on the outcome you're looking for. So for me, I think countries, like if you want to test countries, one campaign to test countries, and then you do ad sets inside of that to test the different countries, rather than having a USA testing campaign, a Canada testing campaign, a UK testing campaign. I would treat it as a folder for all testing.
Yeah.
But then where it becomes interesting, once you have all that proven stuff. So like ads, I like ASC for, because we see ASC pick up faster. So if you want to test ads quickly, throw them in an ASC campaign and see what happens. Like messaging, I think ASC is good for. Ad types, so like flex versus like a catalog ad versus a dynamic creative, all of those different things I would say ASC for that as well, because you want to get those fast results. But then when you try to scale, once you have all of those proven assets, I say you probably are better throwing it into a manual sales campaign for deep scale. That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
Once you have all of that stuff proven.
Yeah, I think that you made a really good point, and I think that is you have to look at, like, you have to ask yourself, first of all, what am I trying to accomplish and test? And then number two, what structure makes sense for that, and view it as more of a foldering system.
Yeah.
Because let's say you want to test 5 different countries. Well, now the high-level folder is pretty wide.
Yeah.
You got 5 different campaigns ASC.
Yeah.
If I'm only testing 2 though, US and Canada,
Yeah.
see, I would be okay with that, because it's just real simple.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it's like manual sales campaign, 2 ad sets.
But this is just becoming a preference thing, and that's all it is.
Exactly. So I think that I do love testing ads in an ASC for the sheer fact that what's going to happen, as everybody knows, is it's going to latch onto one ad in any campaign structure, really.
Yeah.
So if you're running an Advantage Plus shopping campaign, you only have, well, as of right now, you only have ad levels. They're introducing ad set levels, which is pretty exciting, actually.
Yeah.
But if you have like 5 ads in there, it's going to latch onto one ad. So you'll let that ad spend a certain amount until you decide, I'm confident it is or it is not worthy of pursuing.
Yep.
And then you just flip it off, and then it's just going to latch onto the next ad.
Yep.
And because Advantage Plus Shopping is a pretty direct response campaign structure that we see, you don't have to wait weeks to get results for it. The other thing that I really like about it is if you have an existing customer budget cap set, then part of that testing is going to go to cold, and part of it's going to be really intentionally retargeting, which I think is really cool. So you're going to get to see, how does my warm and cold and hot audience, how do all those audiences respond to it? Although, by the way, they're removing, I guess they're supposed to be removing existing budget cap.
I saw that.
So I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if it's a really bad thing. I'm not too concerned. I like that you get to set the percentage, but anyway, that's a side trail there.
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to tag on. I think the most important thing when it comes to campaign structure, whether you're picking Advantage Plus or manual sales, or what are you testing, what are you not testing, I think the most important thing is that you have one campaign set aside as your production or your scale campaign, because you don't want to test stuff in that. You want to get something that is proven and working and just pumps out sales for you. The second that you put an unproven asset into that campaign is a bad decision.
Yeah.
That's where I want to have a different campaign to test something new. And if you can deeply prove something in that other campaign, then you put it in your production or your scale campaign. But it's not until you have those proven assets to move into the production or scale campaign should you do it. But having that one campaign that you don't touch, you don't move, that is my thing that just sits over there, and it's my golden goose. It just lays my eggs. I'm going to try and find another golden goose. I'm going to try and find something to give the golden goose. I don't know, the analogy may fell apart. But testing in a different campaign, not getting it close to your production campaign is the best thing that you can do.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example of this. Is one of our brands sells t-shirts.
Yep.
But introduced a couple months back.
Yeah.
A fine arts line.
Yep.
It's really, really unique, really cool. And actually, we're doing a fine arts promo this week, and literally yesterday she made like $7,300, like just from email. We crushed it. But anyway, we made a mistake of taking a production-based campaign and throwing in some unproven assets to a different product that, by the way, needs a different type of customer.
Yeah.
People that are spending over $100 on art pieces are not people that are spending $32 on t-shirts.
Yeah.
So now you wreck the existing proven production campaign because now it's trying to find different people.
Yep.
And so you can unknowingly sabotage yourself if you try to do testing inside something that has things that are working. And if you ever ask yourself the question, well, why did the thing that was working stop working? Ask yourself a follow-up question. Did I introduce any unknown variables or unproven things into or around that proven asset that I had that stopped working?
Yep.
And a lot of times you'll find that the answer is yes. Actually, I asked our community and I said, hey, we're doing this episode. What questions do you guys have? And one of the questions was, why do some ads that are really producing stop working? And although we don't have the exact answers to it, we can gather some idea of what happens based on stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like there are so many things that we all do in business that we don't realize has this domino effect.
Yeah.
The amount of times that I can't even count how many times I've asked someone, they're like, well, everything went to crap. And I'm like, well, did you change your free shipping threshold? Yeah. Okay. What day did you do that? This day. Okay. Your ad stopped performing that day.
Yeah.
Did you change your price? Yeah, I changed the price. Okay, what day did you do it? This day? Oh, that's when your proven stuff stopped performing. So like a lot of times we sabotage ourselves unknowingly, which is why we're huge fans of using doing what we call like a daily 1-minute journal where every day you have a spreadsheet, or we have a software for it, which is really cool, that allows you to track notes of what did I do today? Did I run a promo sprint today? Or a promo campaign? Am I doing like did I change the free shipping threshold? Did I change pricing? Did I update the website? Did I change the design? What did I do today so that if something goes haywire in the next week or 2 weeks, I could reflect back and say, where did it begin? And then I could revert back.
Yep. This kind of leads into the next thing. I think there's two kinds of scale problems that people have. There's a hard stop where I'm looking at a campaign and everything fell to crap on this day. And oftentimes that's because something was changed, like you just said. Or there are times where people are scaling their budget, or they're trying to increase their volume, and that's when things fall apart. And there's just a budget threshold where that starts to happen. And I think oftentimes, if you're increasing budget or your ad fatigues or something like that happens, it's not an instant stop. It's not like I'm getting consistent purchases and now I'm not because my ad's fatigued.
And if so, it leads itself to likely being a technical issue.
Yes.
A lot of times, like a cart broke. You installed an app, and suddenly there's like a pop-up that's covering the checkout button when the cart drawer slides out. There's so many technical things. So if you ever see like a cliff of a drop-off in sales, you need to go through your website and you need to look for technical errors, because a lot of times that's what happens. Or suddenly winning ads inside of stuff start getting delivery errors because of some miscellaneous setting that you checked, or a status of one of the ads inside of your Shopify, etc.
Yep. I think the other thing, scaling, the way that you scale is very important. Like I was just saying, there are those two times where an ad can just stop, and the way that you scale can impact that. So there's big budget jumps versus slow scaling. And this is kind of interesting because we get this question a lot. Like, how do I scale?
As fast as possible. That's what everyone wants to do.
Yeah. And so we have big budget jumps and slow scaling. So I want to talk about big budget jumps and how we use them, why we don't use them, and how we use them when we do use them, and then slow scaling and why we prefer that one. So big budget jumps, I'm okay with them if you're far above KPI. Like if your break-even ROAS is like a 1.6 and your campaign is cooking at a 3.2 and you really want to just increase spend, you will expect a dip. Like, it will dip. But if you're setting at a 3.2 and your break even is a 1.6, you could expect a dip of an entire 1 return on ad spend. So it could go down to a 2.2. Would you be okay with that? If so, you could do a budget bump and it would be okay. However, why would you? There are only certain times where I feel like a budget bump is really important. You're getting into a busy season, or you, for some reason, you have to spend more right now. Maybe you're like, I'm thinking confetti code, where they have to sell so much in a certain amount of time.
They
before
got a time frame on it.
Yeah, so a budget bump there makes sense. But something that I think is actually probably better is like setting something we just did, where you launch a campaign at just a higher budget. So you have your production campaign, and you're like, I want to bump my budget. You launch another campaign, and this is almost like a scaling test kind of a campaign. You can launch it at a higher budget, so it doesn't touch your production. So if everything goes to crap in this new campaign, it doesn't affect your production campaign. And then you can see, does this become my new production campaign after launching it? That actually is how I like to do budget bumps, rather than touching your production campaign. Because if you touch that and things go to crap, you kind of get lost. The other thing is, when you do a budget bump, you can run into a scale problem where Facebook, Meta, doesn't know who to go to. Maybe you're spending $200 a day, you want to get to $500 a day. Once you push Meta past that $200, $300 a day point, it can get lost or confused as to who to show this ad to that will buy. It knows I have $200 a day and I know who to show this to for that amount of time. But when you force it to go outside of that, it can get lost. But you don't know if you go from 200 to 500, you don't know at what point that happened. Was it 250? Was it 300? Was it 350? You don't know. So that's actually why slow scaling is a little bit better, because you're slowly increasing that, and you can see as you're slowly increasing where that threshold happens of your purchases drop off, or your ROAS starts to decline, or all of that kind of stuff.
So there are kind of two ways I look at this. First, I am a tortoise from a business philosophical standpoint.
Yeah.
And I was asked, it was last week, I think, one of our clients was like, he's like, hey, I'm at $500 a day. I need to get to 1,000 a day. And he's like, how do I get there as quickly as possible? I mean, well, as quickly as possible, you just go and you hit 1,000, publish. As profitably as possible, you slow scale. And we'll talk about slow scaling in a minute and how we do it. But the problem is from a business standpoint, the question is, well, why do I want to? We were talking this morning. Someone was like, he's at $200 a day, I think, in ad spend, and he was like, I want to be at $1,000 a day in ad spend.
Yeah.
Well, that's easy. Just go do it. But do you want to be profitable along the way? And this is, by the way, a different conversation, a different person. We get this all the time. Everybody wants to scale. It's like, well, why do you want to scale? Well, I want to scale because when as many sales as possible. It's like, great, you can get a lot of sales, but you could be hemorrhaging cash. We know people that lost millions of dollars last year because they were scaling for top line and they didn't take into consideration the profitability. And so I am going to hedge on the side of stability and slow. If you read the book, The Tortoise and the Hare, every time you read that book, the tortoise wins. And the people that we see crash
every time you say that,
and burn.
I have to
Go ahead.
every time you say that, I'm always scared that you're going to say the wrong thing, because I always get confused. Is it the tortoise that won, or is it the hare that won?
The tortoise won.
The tortoise always wins.
Yes. The tortoise always wins. And it's a great analogy because, like, how many times have we seen people, like, we have the pleasure of seeing people blow up. And it's exciting. But I'll tell you what, when you go from, like, 10,000 a month in sales to 100,000 a month in sales in 90 days, it looks great on paper. It looks great on social media. A lot of times, you don't have the experience or entrepreneurial capacity and knowledge to sustain it. We've seen this happen time and time again. It's really exciting because I love to share those numbers with them. Like, yeah, this person came in, we were working, they were doing like $30K a month, and they did $150,000 last month. Like, that's really exciting. And they came in and did it in a couple months. But the challenge with extreme fast growth is it can become really unstable and very dangerous. And so ad spend, the reason we often want to do it, if you get to the root of it, is in the back of our minds, there's always this desire for more. And that's just greed speaking. And you could argue with me and say, well, I'm not greedy and I just need to pay bills. And I totally get that. You probably cut some stuff elsewhere. But ultimately, if we're trying to really scale, a lot of it is like, I just want to make as much as possible, which, great. So do I. But I also want to steward the dollars that I have and not be so aggressive that it puts me in a really bad spot. And I've seen that happen more times than not.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be on the side of you need to protect. And so before we even think about scaling, the first question we ask is, what is my current allocation? What is my current ad spend as a percentage of revenue?
Yep.
If you are over 30%, do not scale. I don't care what the KPIs are. If my KPIs are 15 return on ad spend, but my ad spend percentages represents 47% of my current revenue,
Yeah.
We're not scaling because it means you just had a good week.
Yep.
And so we look at ad spend percentage in a 30-day trail. So in the last 30 days, what is my ad spend percentage as a percentage of revenue? And if it's over 30%, we do not scale. It doesn't matter how good the KPIs are. You know what we do instead? We just sit there and soak in the profitability. If I have great KPIs and like my return on ad spend is really high, my CPM is really low, we're going to sit there and say, you know what? While yes, the greed in the back of your brain is saying, I want to scale this thing and I want to get it really big, it only works when it works. But the amount of times that it doesn't work because scaling is never linear is more often than not. And so the first question we ask is, what's my ad spend percentage? If it's over 30%, we don't scale.
Yeah, I like to use the analogy based on that. You have to earn the right to
Yes,
scale.
yes.
You have to earn the right, because if you're looking at your ad spend percentage and you're like, well, it's close enough, like it's almost there, you've not earned the right to scale. You have to sit there for a while and almost make your campaign prove itself. Prove that you can do this here before you get more spend. And in that patience of waiting to let that campaign prove itself is you earning the right to scale your campaign. That's how I like to put it.
And you stack profit along the way.
That too,
you put cash in the bank, and you aren't clouded by aggressive scaling greed.
Yep.
And you know, we have clients that are slow machines. Like they methodically add $5,000 to $10,000 a month to their revenue. But they're freaking unbreakable. Their ad spend percentages are just in check.
Yep.
They have a lot of cash in the bank. They're at ease. And I'll tell you what, when you aren't living on razor thin margins because you have such high ad spend, you could sleep better at night and you can make more sound, intelligent decisions in your business.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is like a whole
it is.
mindset shift
None of this
here.
is in the notes, by
So
the way.
as far as
We're
like
coming with this on the
scaling
spot.
goes, number one, am I over 30%? If I am, the answer is I do not scale. If I'm under, and I'm under by like, I'm down to like one of our brands right now, the ad spend percentage in January was like freaking 40-something%, got really high.
Yep.
I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? We had to taper it down, and it just popped under 30, and it was at 27% this morning. We're like, great, begin the slow scaling process.
Yep.
So my preference in scaling, the most stable way and the most financially prudent way, following the percentage frameworks, is what we call slow scaling. And we will automatically do this. So we'll set up an automation. And what we mean by this, and I love Dylan, how you say the word. Dylan has a note in here. It says the term slow is deceiving. And it really is.
It is.
Because by all standards, it is not slow.
Yeah.
And so slow is this. We scale 3 to 5% per day using an automation that will increase our campaign budget so long as the results in the previous 7-day window achieve our target KPI with a little bit of a buffer.
Yep.
So if I'm just going to use ROAS because it's a little easier. So let's say my target ROAS, I need to be at like, my break even is 1.5. I really want to be at a 2 or more.
Yep.
I might set my scaling target to 2.25 or 2.5 and say, if I'm over 2.25 or 2.5, whatever that is, then increase campaign budget by 3% or 5%. And little fun fact, if you did that every day, and it's going to keep your ad spend percentage in check, because when you go from like 500 to double to $1,000 a day, your ad spend percentage goes really whack.
Yep.
Suddenly your ad spend percentage skyrockets. But when you only go 3% or 5% a day, it's such a small incremental increase in your budget that Meta doesn't freak out.
Yeah.
It freaks out when you go from 500 to 1,000.
Yeah.
Most times. It doesn't freak out, but it also maintains your ad spend percentage nicely. And it's a subtle climb. And you might think it's slow.
Yeah, once again, subtle is deceiving.
Yeah, so how long? So we either do 3% or 5%.
Yeah.
How long does it take to double your budget?
3%, it takes 23 days. And
Okay.
at 5%, it takes 14 days.
So,
So in 2 weeks, you've doubled your budget at 5%, or 3 weeks and you've doubled your budget at 3%.
but with stability.
With stability.
And it would not increase, the automation would say, in the last 7 days. So if the results are not good, guess what? It's not going up today.
Yeah.
It's not increasing my ad spend today. And so it allows us to really control our ad spend a lot better, and the optimization doesn't get thrown when we do it by that. And I want you to just think of this. You might say, well, I want to scale really aggressively. What if you wanted to scale aggressively, and I was to tell you, well, no worries, what if we just 4x'd your budget in the next month?
Yeah.
Would that be aggressive? I would say that's relatively aggressive.
Yeah.
But it's at 5% per day.
Yeah.
5% per day, you double your budget. So if I had a $100 budget, it'd be 214 days. In 28 days, so long as I'm within KPI, it would be $400.
Yeah.
That, by all growth standards, is pretty fast.
And you probably won't even get there. Odds are, because you'll hit some kind of a scale bottleneck where, say you're at $200 a day, you're increasing 3 to 5%. Odds are, once you hit 250, 300, 400, somewhere in there, you're going to hit a bottleneck where your ROAS starts to go down and you've hit a scale problem.
Well, another observation, here's what I would say I see too, is because you slow climb, you hit this point where in the previous 7 days, it falls just below that target. And so it stays there for a while.
Yeah.
And as it stays there for a while, it's almost like it optimizes with that budget for that audience. And then the results start to go up because it sits there for 3, 4, 5 days. And then you know what happens? Then you start the slow climb.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. So we see it do the best. And if you think you need to scale aggressively, I'd say 4x in a month is aggressive, but it has greater stability along the way, and it keeps your ad spend percentage in check, and you could really find the threshold in which things begin to break down.
Yeah. That was a
long-winded version on talking about scaling.
But I think that's what people care the most about, right? Like, people want to know how to scale, and I honestly think a lot of people teach scale wrong, and that's the safest way to scale.
Yeah.
And it keeps profit in mind, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's why we have the Max Profits Mentorship.
Yep.
Which, by the way, if you own an e-commerce business and you're like, hey, this is making a lot of sense. I'd love to get inside your guys' brains even more, have access to training material, all the assets, the spreadsheets, the Canva templates, the ad templates, and our entire system of how we operate and scale e-commerce brands, and we teach hundreds of people how to do it as well. Go to ecommercealley.com. We even have other stuff. We have ad planners. You can buy our Canva templates, I think like 40-something bucks. You can get KPI calculators to figure out your targets. There's so many cool things you can buy for like pretty cheap. But then also if you really want to get access to us for like coaching, and you want to get our community of people, and you want to get access to like events and masterminds and stuff like that we do, then go at ecommercealley.com. You can see we have 2 programs.
Yeah.
We have the Alley, which is if you're really under that $10,000 to $20,000 a month revenue threshold, and Dylan is the head coach in the Alley. And then when you start to climb over that, that's where we have the Max Profits Mentorship, which goes well beyond advertising and gets into things from email to finance to scaling to mindset to like big picture business stuff. And that's where I'm actually the head coach over there. So if that sounds interesting to you, go to ecommercealley.com to check it out.
Yeah, and if you're still here, we're probably 45 minutes in. If you're still here at this point, that's for you.
We're impressed.
No, that is for you.
That is, yeah.
Either you're already in the program, hello to all of our clients, or you should be in the program if you're here 45 minutes in. Just throwing that out there. So next, how many ads should you have inside a campaign? It's a question we get a lot as well. And I feel like there's not necessarily a wrong thing to do here. I feel like there's
one. If you have one ad, that is a wrong answer.
That is, I guess, the wrong answer. There's a range that I feel can get kind of comfortable. I like anywhere from 5 to 10.
Yeah.
I feel like anything lower than 5, 3 is like that bare minimum. But it's like, if you're going to do 3, just do 5, right? Like just throw in an extra 2. Reason being, whether you do an Advantage Plus campaign, a manual sales campaign, no matter what, Meta's going to pick most likely 1, maybe 2 to put most of the spend into. And it's going to use the rest of them for retargeting. And I feel like if you get to the point where you're adding too many ads to a campaign, you'll kind of get in your own head and be like, well, it's not spending on this ad, so should I kill it? Or it's not doing this, or this ad's not doing well, all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't matter, because it's going to spend the most on those first few ads, and it'll just cook right there. I like 5 to 10 ads inside of a campaign. I think that's the safe range.
Yeah. I don't know.
You don't think?
Because we don't, so we've done things with 15 ads.
Yep.
I've not done more than 15 in a single campaign to me, or a single ad set or a single ASC.
Yeah.
I haven't done more than 15.
Yep.
So I don't have any data to tell me something over that.
Yeah.
We've done 15 in stuff and gotten great CPAs, just fine. We've done 10.
Yep.
Gotten fine.
Yep.
We've done 3.
Yep.
We've gone just fine. I was actually having a conversation with a good friend of mine that runs an e-commerce business, and they did about $500,000 last month. The peak November was about $1 million. So like, they run a pretty good amount of ads, right?
Yeah.
They spend, I think, evergreen like $5K a day, something like that. And we were talking about how many ads do you need, and I think the things ebb and flow. I think at one point, like you could just have like a couple or one or something, and we used to do that with the audience lab.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
We used to have like single ads inside single ad sets, and it would work.
Yep.
But we don't see it work anymore.
Nope.
And because we also don't recommend doing a lot of exclusion, so there's a lot of retargeting. If you only have one ad, what's it going to do? Just send the same ad to everybody.
Yeah.
So so we were talking yesterday or 2 days ago about how many do you actually need, and I think it's less about how many do you need, and it's more about how great are the ads.
Yep.
Because like we were talking, like he in one of his campaigns, we're looking at his, and he had one campaign that he was spending $2,000 a day on for this product line with 3 ads.
Yeah.
He had another one, so he had actually 3 different quantities for 3 different. He runs 3 campaigns, different buyer personas for them. So one of them had 3 unique ads in it, running $2,000 a day. Another one was running $2,000 a day, and he had 1 flex ad in it. All right, interesting. And then the third one was running like 4 or 5 ads in it. They're all unique for $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit different spend thresholds. Almost all of the results, the return on ad spend was less than 0.2 away from each other. So it's pretty close. So it's like a 2.95 return on ad spend, a 2 or 3.2 return on ad spend. It was all really, really close.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about this, and then we go look at ours, and we have 10 in a campaign, and then we have, I think, 5 in a campaign now.
The one that we were just talking about at the beginning of this podcast
Or is it 15?
has 5.
Oh yeah, the new
one
one
we
just
just
launched.
launched, yeah.
Oh yeah, actually that was inspired by my conversation with him. I was like, how many do you believe you need? He said, honestly, when I go over 10, things get really hairy. When I go under 3, things get really hairy. 3 to 5 seems to be my sweet spot. And I was like, all right. I was like, I'll test this out with you. I'll throw $1,000 a day into an ASC with 5 ads, and out of the gates, it's doing just fine. So like, it's interesting because you think you want to know how many should I put. I do believe that you shouldn't put under 3 unless there's a flex ad with a lot of variety in it. But even so, I don't think you should run a flex ad. I think you should run unique post IDs or unique ads. I don't think you should be under 3. I don't have a reason to say that you should be over 10 or over 15 because I have not done over 15, and I see the same results at 15, at 10, at now 5, and we've seen it.
It's interesting that Kyle says otherwise. I feel like you don't. I've never seen a situation where, granted, ad spend levels will affect this greatly, but I've never seen a situation where having 10 versus 15 changes.
Makes a difference.
Let's say 5 versus 10 versus 15 makes
Because it lashes on to 2 or 1.
Because it's going to pick those 2 no matter what.
The idea of it retargeting, because I do see the value in it starting to like show other ads to people, but it's such a minority that at that point you could just isolate a retargeting campaign if you really wanted to, and just through the ads for retargeting inside of that.
More importantly, I'd rather you just have the 5 ads that do the best in there for the retargeting. Because even if people are seeing 5 different ads from you, that's enough variety, I think. Like, unless you're spending, and you could even argue, unless you're spending XYZ, but he's spending a lot with not that many
and to
ads.
be fair, too, if there are any like really big, heavy spenders on here, I would love to know from you on the YouTube comments. Please go to Instagram @JoshCoffee, shoot me a DM. Let me know. Like, we have some clients, the most I've consulted of clients spending about $50K a day. So like beyond that, or that we've been a part of. And so like, I don't know super far beyond that because I haven't recently seen anyone that's spending more than like 5 to 10K a day have over 10 to 15 ads in a single ad set or a single ASC. So I can't speak from experience in that. I'm speaking to the majority. Most people that we work with are not even spending $1,000 a day. Most people probably watching this aren't over $1,000 a day. If you are, that's freaking awesome. But we've run promo sprints where we've spent up to $8,000 a day of our own dollars, by the way. This is not other people's. This is our own money. We watch our own money very, very closely. Not that we don't pay attention to our clients' money, but we pay really attention to our own money. And we've spent up to $8,000 a day on like promo campaigns that we've been running, and we didn't even have that many ads. It was like less than 10 ads. You know, like things where we run 5 ads, 6 ads, whatever, and they just
and it
crush
only
it.
latched on to the top.
It only latched
4, I think?
Exactly.
So
it's kind of like I don't think there is a right amount. I do think there is because I haven't done more than 15, and I haven't seen any high spend accounts do more than 15. at least we've worked with.
Yeah.
But I have seen that if you go under 3, the problem is there's like not enough variety. And if there's
Yes.
some retargeting being done, I do see it kind of start to fatigue.
Yeah. So all this talk about ads, we haven't talked about ads yet. We've talked about campaign structure, scaling, budget, all that kind of stuff. Let's get into ads. Let's talk about what ads are doing best. What should you test? What ads should you be running? It sucks that we've gotten this far and we're just now talking about ads, because this is the most important part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because as you've heard us say time and time again, so that's why I started this podcast at the beginning, like, I hope that you guys stick around, because every single piece of what we're talking about is so important, because it all connects together in a puzzle. Everything that we've talked about leading up to this point, yeah, you can do this campaign structure, and you can do this, and you can scale this, and you can do this, but it all matters if you have great ads. You have to have great ads first for any of that to matter.
Yeah.
So let's talk about great ads. What ads do you see? I think the big question that people are always asking is video versus images. Like, should I run images? Should I run video? I've seen video work really well. Should I try to find videos that work for me? What are your...
I would say observationally, I do not see video do super well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that we could talk about.
Yep.
Images I see do better than not. But to be fair, I don't see a lot of people testing video. Maybe it's because I tell them not to do video.
Well, I'll tell you, anytime I talk to a new client that comes into our program and they're running their own ads, oftentimes they're actually running video.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And I think that's a common, I don't want to say misconception, because video can work, but I think people assume video does better. They assume that. So they run...
We're told that, though.
Yes.
Everyone
Yes.
says, you got to go video, TikTok style,
Yes.
UGC style, but we just don't see that play out in practical majority of the time.
Yeah, so
practically majority of the time.
every time I talk to a new client, I see them running video. I'm like, hey, let's try images. So I tell them to run images, and instantly they're getting better results just by running images than they were the video. I have a few ideas as to why that's the case, because we have been told that videos do the best, and I don't think that that's true anymore. I think it used to be true, and I think that the landscape has shifted over time, the last 6 months or so, to images doing better. But
I was going to add to that. So we often hear the videos do best, and we continue to. In fact, I went, so Ben Heath, he's another, he educates a lot on Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And so Ben Heath, if you don't know him, go check out his channel. He has a lot of really, really great stuff.
Yeah.
And what's interesting and what's really hard, because you have to like sift through all of it and say what applies to me, right? There's so much information out there. Not everything always applies to you, right? Even stuff we're saying right now, some of this may not apply to you.
Yep.
Maybe videos absolutely crush for you. I would say that's the minority of people that we see, and we work with a lot of people, and we optimize a lot of accounts. But Ben Heath, just a month ago or something or so, it was pretty recently, he did a poll and he said, what are the top performing creative types? And he put video, or he put like image, carousel, video, and like other or something. And then it had like 20-something hundred people, unique people vote on it. Video was like 60 or 70% of people saying video performs the best.
Yeah.
And so if you were to follow Ben Heath, who has 300 and something thousand YouTube subscribers, unlike our piddly 7,000 something, hey, we need more people to give us a like, subscribe, please. What's hard is you would see that, and what would you believe? Video. I have to run video.
Yeah.
Well, Ben Heath teaches Facebook ads for everybody.
Yeah.
So services, B2B, video works a lot in other things.
Yep.
I'm looking through the lens of, I wish he said, in the direct-to-consumer physical product e-commerce space, what works best for you?
Yep.
Because I don't see video work best, because there's a lot going on in video and variables that I believe is what wrecks it for everybody, which I think is what you were about to share.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think that video is just a high resource thing. Whether it's creating the video, whether it's testing the video, whatever it is, video is just high resource. So when you're looking at creating videos, I truly think that you need to test 25 to 30 videos to find a winner, because there's so many intricacies in a video. The first frame, the first 5 seconds, the messaging, is it funny? Is it professional looking? Is it on a phone? There's so many different things that can change with a video. So you have to test a lot of that to see what works for your brand. So you have to test 25 to 30 to find one really good video. On top of that, you have to really, really understand your messaging, your how strong, like a strong USP for your brand or USPs, how to talk to your customers. What are the right words that I have to say in the first 5 seconds to get my customer to understand? And then you have to continue talking to them correctly for the next 45 seconds, whatever that is, because every second matters. And if you lose them, you lose them, right? There's also, you have to be very clear and concise. And I feel like people get lost in fluff with video. Yeah. People are like, they're so focused on the hook. They're so focused on this. And I think we've done this too, where we're so focused on the fun part of the video and we miss the messaging, or we miss being clear and concise, and makes the video not work.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. And it's really, really hard to do for products, because people don't care about your story. People don't care. When they're looking at the ad, they want to know what this product is, what it does, and who it's for. And you have to very clearly say that in your ad, and it's hard to do that on a video.
And videos are, so we always measure on what we call the intent and intrigue scale.
Yep.
Videos have a high degree of intrigue because they're moving and people like videos. But they have a lower degree of intent usually. Yep. And you said sometimes people are focused on trying like too many hooks and stuff. I'd actually say most people are bad at hooks, and so that's why videos do so poorly, is because like there's so many nuanced variables, and it's like, well, why did the video not do well? Was it because my hook sucked?
Yes.
Was it because the first unique selling point that I'm talking about, or the pain point, sucked? Was it the overarching message? Was it the type of ideal customer that I'm trying to address here that was the issue? There's so many variables that you don't know, and it's so high threshold to create that it actually slows you down unless you have the capacity to do that, and you have the affinity for it. Because if I was to take all of our clients and I told everyone, hey, I need everybody here to make 15 to 20 videos.
More importantly, we tell them, if you find the right video, it will make you $1 million brand tomorrow, right? Like you say, if you find the right video, it will make you successful. But you have to go test 50. They'd be like,
they would all die inside.
Yeah,
because like most people I've observed, even ones that have great social media presence and are very good on camera, hate doing it. It's a lot of work. And so the problem is, if something is a lot of work, you procrastinate and you're less apt to go and tackle it, because everyone wants to go to the lowest, fastest thing that you can do. And so I think that like it also slows you down, and then sometimes it just leads to like paralysis that you do nothing. And so I would rather you get moving in a lower resource way that is also highly impactful and highly intent driven, whereas video is mostly a lot of times intriguing. I mean, the amount of times we've optimized campaigns, I'm like, well, I don't know what's happening. Like the video had like really high click-through rates on these other tests that I ran, and then I'm like, yeah, but I don't even know what you're selling for the first 18 seconds. I just see you talking to a camera, or it's like doing all these shots. I don't even see the product yet. What even is this? And so those are the types of variables that you don't know because your customers don't tell you. They just don't click. They just don't click. They just don't buy. Or they click and then they don't buy because they thought it was like a tutorial or a blog. And so, I would say that if it's between videos and images, most people I believe should run images, which is why, we have 150 Canva templates we sell for like 40-something bucks. Go check that out. It'll save a lot of time.
So videos are slow, high resource. I think they can be successful if you find the right one. It's very expensive to find the right one. Not only is it expensive to find the right one in time to make it, amount that you have to test, spend for it, because CPMs are also typically higher for videos. So they're more expensive.
A lot of times double.
They're more expensive to run videos too. So you're paying more to get it in front of people. Therefore, you have to really capitalize on the people that you're getting in front of. So for images, what images do we prefer then? First off, I think that you could find a decent image in like a batch of 5. Granted, the more you test, the better. But if I were to tell you to go make 25 videos or 25 images, it would take you like 5 times less time to make 25 images than it would to make 25 videos. So you're able to find a better image far faster. On top of that, it's easier when you're creating images to not have a good grasp on your messaging, which is not an excuse to not have a good grasp on your messaging, but it's okay to not have a good grasp on your messaging, because you can just put 3 bullet points on an image. Here are my 3 USPs. You don't necessarily know which one is resonating with your customers, but one of them is. Whereas with a video, you're spoon feeding them that information, and if you don't put the right one first, you lost them. Whereas with an image, you can just put all of your messaging on one image, and the customers will find the thing that they like, or they'll find that thing that resonates with them and that will cause them to click. So I feel like you can have less understanding on your messaging for images to work. And then on top of that, it's easier to show the product. Like you were saying, with a video, people will often get stuck on the hook and trying to make the hook intriguing without showing the product. Like, you should do this. Okay, I don't care. I want to see the product that you're advertising. And if you're not showing me the product, then I don't know what this video is about, like you were saying. Whereas with an image, you are forced to show the product. What else am I going to show? It has to be the product. So it makes it easier for people to understand what you're saying. It's very intent driven. And on top of that, Ady-Ads are what we call them. Ads that scream in the face of your prospective customer, this is an ad. Like, people used to like being tricked into clicking and finding out that it was an ad. Now people want you to tell them what the product is, what it does, who it's for, all of that kind of stuff on the ad, so I can make a decision based on that. And I'm only going to click if it checks all those boxes for me.
Yeah, I think the Ady-Ad, we coined that term
Yeah.
a year ago or in the last year.
Yeah.
Ady-Ads, they just look like ads. People want
Yeah.
to know the difference between all of that. I don't need to say anything more than that. We
Yeah.
see them do really well, which is why we use a lot of those Canva templates for ourselves.
Yep.
And we just see them perform really well.
Yep.
And I think that images are a great way of establishing your messaging and establishing all the things that your ideal customers care about that you could then lead to creating videos. But if I could
Yes.
if I could achieve the performance that I want with images, then I'm not even going to waste additional resource creating videos unless I believe that it's going to have that much of an incremental
Yeah.
improvement inside my performance.
Yeah.
So if I'm in like a 2.5 return on ad spend with images, do I actually believe will a video get me to a 3.5? Maybe, but statistically probably not.
Yeah.
Maybe it gets me to a 2.6. Is it worth all the effort of going through to do that and testing that and all the dollars behind trying to find the right video, the right hook and all of that? Or could I just run heavy at a 2.5 with ads?
Yep.
You know, so yeah, I think that images are my priority, the speed, and it helps you continue moving forward without getting paralyzed.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep moving here. Broad versus Advantage Plus audiences versus lookalikes. This will be real quick.
Yeah.
Broad.
Love it.
Yep.
Yeah. It's great.
Advantage Plus audiences.
It's coming back. I think
Yeah.
it's good. I think it comes back to that conversation that we were having before on, does Advantage Plus work for you? If Advantage Plus works for you, then none of this even matters because you can run Advantage Plus and I think you can do really well.
Which is just broad. Yeah.
Yeah.
For right now, which they're introducing Advantage Plus audiences inside Advantage Plus.
Yes, which is really interesting.
Yeah. I'm excited for it.
However, I think if you are trying to test audiences, Advantage Plus audiences is
Yeah.
it's working really
Not
well.
manual audiences.
Yes.
You could, and just to clarify here, when we say Advantage Plus audience, so broad means you're not selecting any targeting, just running open.
Yep.
Advantage Plus audiences is, we have a YouTube video on this, which is basically where you can insert interests that are suggestions
Yeah.
or custom audiences or lookalikes that are suggestions that Meta just takes and then Meta will kind of run with.
Yeah.
And we see Advantage Plus audiences, I will say, I'm seeing this come back.
Yep.
It's performed really well in actually one of our manual sales campaigns,
Yeah.
as well as probably half a dozen other clients we've been testing it in.
Yep.
It's been doing fine. Lookalikes, they did fine in ours.
Yeah.
But I can't use ours as like as the outlier or the trend.
Ours
because
is the outlier.
Ours is the outlier. The trend with lookalikes is that they're kind of like meh.
Yeah.
The CPMs are higher.
Yeah.
Generally, they're not performing. Of course, we try them every quarter, every 3 to 6 months, and right now we're not seeing lookalikes do super, super hot. They do fine in ours and a couple, but that's the outlier situation.
Yeah.
So.
You know what my biggest pet peeve is? Breakdowns. I hate breakdowns that they don't work anymore.
What do you mean?
Going into the next thing. I was going to try a fun segue.
You're going to try a
but
fun segue
you know what?
into
Forget it.
catalogs.
Forget it.
All right.
Let's just talk about catalog ads.
Breakdowns suck.
Speaking of catalog ads, breakdowns suck.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk, and this is probably our final like massive observation to talk through. Is catalog ads in catalog campaigns. So you could run catalog ads on an ad level. You could also run a catalog campaign, which allows you to have different ad sets with a different catalog for each ad set.
And I would say flex ads tie into this too.
How so?
With breakdowns. Not being able to break
yes,
down
with breakdowns.
products.
Yes,
not
yes.
being able to break down all that kind of stuff.
Yes. So
Looking at breakdowns.
how do
in
you
particular.
feel about catalog ads?
Catalog ads as a whole, I think are pretty good. It depends on your brand, depends on your products, depends on a lot of different things.
How many products you have?
Once
is
again,
another one.
it goes back to that living organism thing where it can work for some, not for others. For brands that have a lot of products and have a good understanding of what products will sell to the front end, it can work really well. Giving Facebook the trust and assets that it needs to find the right person for the right product at the right time. If you can do that and you have the products that allows Facebook to do that, it works really well. If you have like one product or products that don't really work to cold, that's where I don't see catalogs working super well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say there's some great, I'm a huge fan of catalogs. Catalogs are great because catalogs, Meta's gonna pool, it's gonna pool the different products in product, I don't want to get into the details, but like you build product sets of like bestsellers, different collections, etc. And it's going to find people that have an interest in it without you. The benefit is you don't have to choose what products you're advertising and manually create stuff for them.
Yep.
So you don't have to create copy and you don't have to create creatives.
Yeah.
You don't have to build creatives because it's going to dynamically pull that from your store. I love that because that's very low fidelity. It's a very low resource to get and roll out. Because you don't have to worry about betting it on your bestseller and then finding out that it sucks against cold traffic. You get to let Meta say, I'm going to show the products that I deem necessary based on the interest that people have expressed. That's the pro. In fact, we have so many crazy stories of like manual sales or selecting products sucking, and then suddenly we run a catalog, and then suddenly those people are cranking the return on ad spend. Last week we had one of our clients. She came in and she had been doing manual stuff, and then I was like, hey, you need to go run a catalog campaign. And she ran it and she posted on our community. She's like, I'm running a catalog for like 2 days now, and I spent $400, and we've done over $10,000 in sales. It just found these people with products she never intended to drive them to that came in and had these massive average order values, and she cranked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there you go. If you didn't run a catalog, you wouldn't have known. So I'm a fan of catalogs.
My hunch were you going to leave catalogs?
Not yet.
Okay. My hunch, before you move to the next thing, is I don't think catalogs are necessarily scalable. I think they fill a need in the overarching Meta strategy. However, I don't think you can scale deeply into a catalog. Maybe you feel differently. I think if you're trying to scale heavily and you're trying to cross that million threshold, you have to get the ads, you have to get the messaging, all that offers becomes really important, and you just can't do that in a catalog. That's my thoughts on. I feel it fills in like a certain ad spend threshold, but at some point you're gonna have to get those ads figured out.
I think it can scale to a degree. I don't know the threshold that it can scale up to before it dies.
Depends
I
on the
don't know.
brand.
It's really hard because the downside to catalogs, a couple major downsides. The first major downside is that if you throw a catalog ad inside an ASC or anything, it's going to consume all of the budget. Meta is just prioritizing it. So if you throw it in, if you have like 5 ads and one of them is a catalog, it's going to get all that one will get all of the spend.
Yep.
So you lose. It means you have to kind of isolate. I do not like throwing catalog ads inside an existing thing with any other unique post or single ads.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw in any single ads because the catalog will take all of the spend. I would want to isolate that. The second thing is you lose control and you have no visibility on breakdown of what product is actually performing.
Yeah.
It's up to you to interpret, which is really annoying.
Yeah.
So like that's where I see catalogs can really help in that regard, that you don't have to, that Meta will find products that people want right now, even for seasonal stuff, which is very helpful for like boutiques, that their seasonality kind of takes it, as things go out of stock, the benefit is it doesn't show it.
Yep.
But it's also, the downside is I don't get a breakdown in visibility on like exactly what is producing sales for me. And then the other thing that we see is like with catalogs, you might have 15 products in a catalog, and it's latched onto one and it's crushing it, and then it decides tomorrow I'm going to spend on another product, and that product bombs, and then you're like, well, the catalog isn't working, and it's like, well, you can't do a breakdown to find that this was the product that was crushing, and then this one wasn't. You have to manually connect the dots of like, oh, this was getting a lot of sales, and then suddenly, and the performance was good, and then now it's not getting a lot of sales, and the performance is bad. But it's kind of convoluted, which I think is the downside of it.
Yeah.
But it can help you identify if you notice trends of this product is suddenly selling. We never sell this product, or this one's really selling and it's performing well. I could pull that out and I could then really evergreen this.
Yeah.
Which I think is the better play versus trying to scale only upon catalogs.
Yep. I think
I don't know the threshold in which you could scale up to before it starts to die.
Yeah, like I said, I think that is more of a brand thing. Depends on your products, depends on how good your website is, your messaging, all that kind of stuff plays into how deeply you can scale into a catalog campaign. I think that like I said, it fills in a certain ad spend percentage of your budget. Like I feel like it almost doesn't hurt for everyone to have a catalog as long as you have those products that can be advertised to cold and you have a variety of products. Doesn't hurt to have it. However, the structure, like you said, not putting it in your main production campaign because it will pull all the budget, and then also just knowing that it only works if you have products that will work to cold traffic. If you're a single product or just a few product store, then you probably don't need a catalog.
Yeah. Well, we covered a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah, we did.
That was good. I love talking this. We could talk this all day. This is probably one of the longest podcast episodes we have had.
Yeah, in a
but
while.
I want to talk about a little bit, to kind of close out here, I want to talk about the future.
Yeah.
Kind of some things that we're seeing just from the front lines
I think ultimately
with a lot of
people need to, I want them to leave with something that they can think about, stew on, and start to make changes for.
Yeah, take action on.
Yep.
I did a podcast about 18 months ago on this.
Yep.
Actually, I think it was exactly 18 months ago.
And everyone should go listen to it.
Yeah.
Episode 85. It's coming to fruition. The prophecy is here. That's what it feels
The
like.
prophecy. So,
Yeah.
so I did a podcast episode. What did I title it? I called it...
I think it's The Great Divide.
The Great E-Commerce Divide, Surviving the Shift in Consumer Spending.
It's a good title.
That is definitely a ChatGPT title. I never use colons in my my copy.
That's fair.
Or my headline writing. I don't write headlines with ChatGPT anymore, or at least that style. So I did an episode called The Great E-Commerce Divide, and we're actually seeing this begin to really play out.
Yep.
And so in that episode, and I could give you a little synopsis here, I talked about how in 2020, 2021, we have this wave of stimulus check customers that came in and they just bought up everything. And everybody talks about the pandemic numbers as kind of like these unicorn years of where the government just hands out money like it's free candy. And then
everyone had a bunch of free time to go start a business too.
Yeah. So you see this massive rise in spending online. Everybody's at home. You also see this massive surge in e-commerce businesses coming out of the woodworks, just throwing up things. Shopify stock was probably soaring. I don't know. I haven't looked up Shopify stock.
Interesting.
I'm sure it soared. And so this is now this point, and I actually made this prediction that I said in the next 18 months, we're going to start to see the chaff become separated from the wheat, which is where we're going to see who will stand and who is going to throw in the towel. And where it's like, hey, this is where the true hardworking, persevering, fight forward entrepreneurs are going to thrive, and the ones that cower in front of adversity in difficult times are just and that don't have the mental fortitude to withstand it are going to start to crumble. And we have started, and it's very sad.
It is.
We've started to see brands and businesses close their doors and give up. We saw there was one particular client that we had that was in the Max Profits mentorship. They closed their doors a month and a half ago after they did $2 million the previous year. Closed their doors. And our sales team, because we get to work with a lot of people and we have a process to work with us. We don't just work with anybody. And we have 500, 600 people book calls to talk to us a month. So we have a pretty good sample size to understand from the front lines what people are experiencing. And we're seeing people throw in the towel. We're seeing less people struggle to really differentiate themselves in the marketplace.
Things are just getting harder.
Things are getting harder.
Just across the board, the barrier to entry is getting higher. Things are getting harder. Scaling is harder. I mean, the example that you gave of the person that just recently shut down their doors, the reason being is because it was so easy to get to where he was in that time period. The scaling was so much easier. And now we're seeing scaling as a whole is just getting harder, and differentiation is becoming more important. There's a lot of fundamentals that weren't necessary. I was going to say weren't necessarily necessary. That was not a good way to say it, but they weren't necessary. They weren't necessary the last 4 years. You were able to just throw up a Shopify store, sell your product, because there was so much money and that was just the thing to do. So people were kind of used to that. And it's getting to the point now where that's not necessarily the case. Specifically, a really good example that we've seen is brand over transaction, where, like I said, a lot of people were able to just throw up a Shopify store, use the default theme, have decently good products, not great, not bad, but also not fantastic, and do well. It's not like that anymore, and it's going to become more even moving forward, where you can't just throw up a Shopify store and just sell a product. Brand is important. People want to learn more about who you are, what you sell. They want to know why your product is better than the competitor. They want to know what the product is for, what it does, all of that kind of stuff. And if you're not leaning into that and going back and working on those fundamentals, it's going to get really hard.
Yeah, and we see this because, and this is a message of warning and also a message of hope.
Yep.
Here's the warning. CPMs are going up.
Yep.
They increased 31% in the last year.
Yeah.
That's a pretty substantial increase.
Yeah.
So what that means is that you cannot live on, and you never should have, but you really,
But it was easy to get away with it.
It was easy to get away with it, where you could live on front end just churning and burning people, where you don't even have a back end email marketing, you don't worry about the brand, you just acquire the customer.
Yeah.
Well, as advertising costs go up, you need to position yourself and build the foundation inside your business so that even if you were to acquire customers at a break even or a slight profit, that you're making a lot of money on the back end because you have a high lifetime value from them buying again because they have a great experience with your brand.
Yep.
And you have tight email marketing, and you have tight organic presence, and you also have really tight SMS. And so you have to start to position yourself as the long-term buying choice for customers over just a transaction on the front end. And if you're only making your sales from advertising, and advertising costs is only getting more expensive, because now we can finally say that, it means you have to have a better experience that gets people to come back.
Yep.
And in conjunction with this, I will say another observation we have is conversion rate.
Yeah.
So this is interesting because we typically tell everyone you need to be between like 2 and 5% conversion rate. Unless you're high ticket, you'll usually be on the lower end or well under 2%. You'll be under 1%.
Yeah.
You should be between 2 and 5% conversion rate on your website. And if you're over 5, you're probably too cheap, and you should probably add friction, increase your price, and increase your profit margin. If you're under 2, nobody's buying your stuff. There's something wrong. Well, we're starting to see average conversion rates begin to decline.
Yeah.
So what this is likely telling us is that, and this is all assumptions, we have to draw from this, is that buying behavior are becoming a little bit more skeptical. I think that most people would agree with that, especially because there's so many scams. People do buy stuff, and there are scams out there, and then it screws it for the rest of us. Yeah. And so because of this surge, there are a lot of bad experiences people have had. So we do see conversion rates declining, and what this means is like time to purchase, we're also seeing increase, because so you're gonna have to need to have some kind of ability or strength to hold out longer to acquire customers, and a lot of that comes through brand and focusing on building a great experience for them, which just takes time. And then you have to lean into email marketing and really connecting with your customers. And we've been telling our clients this a lot in the last 6 months, especially when we were at the Orlando Intensive, is we're focused so heavily on becoming a heart-to-heart business, not a B to C, not a business to consumer, but a heart-to-heart. How do you connect with people in a personalized way? Which is why I believe that we're going to see a rise in community-driven brands, where you're really, and actually we've done episodes on this too, where like you're just seeing community becoming a very, very important part of your brand in building a tribe around that.
And just experience in general. Like, people don't want it to be a transaction. I know for me recently, a really good example, we just went to look at a couch, and the experience that we had looking at that couch was unlike any other, because they took us through an experience. And I think people need to do that on their e-commerce store with their email across the board, because people don't want to just find us. They can do that on Amazon. If I want a transaction, I can go to Amazon and I can get a transaction. If I want to buy from a store, if I want to buy from your store, I want an experience. I want that heart to heart, like you're talking about.
Yeah. And this is a message of hope because most of the people watching care.
Yep.
You care about your products. You care about your customers. And so now you just have to really lean into that. And there is hope. You can make it. I mean, like, we're still living in an amazing times. Like, e-commerce isn't going anywhere. It will grow, but you're gonna see this massive separation.
Yes.
And which is gonna give a lot of opportunity to the people that are willing to do the work, to build the foundations, to not settle for stock product pages that are just like product, price, and related products right below it. Like, you have to lean into building an actual serious brand, figuring out your messaging, connecting with people. You also have to learn advertising before it's too late and it's too expensive, and then suddenly, like, you're behind the 8 ball. So you need to go watch YouTube videos, buy a course, talk to us, like really prioritize building your brand, figuring out your messaging, figuring out ads, and getting ahead of the curve. Because if you don't, you might fall behind and you might not make it. All right. Wow.
That was good.
This is probably the longest podcast. This is pretty long.
That was a lot to cover.
I have to pee so bad. I've been holding it. I just had to stop drinking. I have to use the restroom. I didn't want to break that.
All right, just wrap it up then. We'll end this here very quickly.
Well, hey, if you guys appreciated this, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, or subscribe. I can't even think I have to go to the restroom. But here's what I would say: if you could drop in the comments what part of this episode resonated with you, or maybe what are you seeing on some of these topics that we talked about with scaling and creative? Are you seeing the same things that we're seeing, or are you seeing something different? Leave a comment if you're on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, go to YouTube and leave us a comment. We would love to hear from you. And of course, this is the Ecommerce Alley. We're grateful that you're listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.